Welcome, folks. We are thrilled to be with you today. Thanks for joining us. And I am Doug Kothe, and I am the principal consultant, CEO, and founder of People Smart Group, and also the founder of the Organizational Health Collective, here with my friend, Terry. And I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Dr. Terry Wager, principal consultant of the Generator Group or Generator Consulting. We have so many names, you just can't find us. But we do good work. So, what do we talk about today, Doug?
Well, if you watch the intro, you know that we were talking about will you have the courage to fire your best performer?
All right. So,
what?
Why would we want to fire our best performer?
Well, if your best performer is toxic, is the real reason, right? And so if they are toxic to your culture, toxic to your people, and that question of the hardest role of a leader, the hardest decision of a leader, probably one of the hardest, is, hey, what do I do when I've got an amazing performer who's bringing in great numbers? They're doing great stuff. They bring in a lot of money to the organization, and yet, guess what? They piss off a lot of people. They don't fit the culture. They don't fit. They make everyone else around them mad. And as the picture in the intro video said, I'm all about me, you know. And if you got that person in your organization, what do you do with them?
Yeah,
I would say you fire them.
That's sometimes you got to, and I would believe that all of us in organizational health think fire last is the last resort. And coaching them, training them, talking to them, helping them with a personal improvement plan or personal development plan is a great first step.
Yep.
But in the end, if they don't respond to that and they really see themselves as God's gift to your business, then sometimes the kindest thing to do for everyone around and actually to stabilize your business and to let everybody know that they are important to you, you let the high performer go.
Yep.
You know where I see this a lot, and I actually experienced it in sports, and I don't think it was necessarily the basketball players' issue necessarily, but I live in Portland, Oregon, and Portland Trail Blazers back in 2012, 2013, something like that, maybe 2014, had LaMarcus Aldridge, amazing basketball player and really good, but they built a team all around him. And then Dame Lillard came in, and Dame was and is in his own right absolutely amazing himself, but they built the team so strongly around Aldridge that everything went into him, and where they could have actually had a nice duo, they crippled themselves by relying on that all-star to get the job done, and he wasn't getting the job done enough to win a championship or to make everybody as excited about what was going on as him. And it was basically the Aldridge show all of the time. Then when he left, he went to San Antonio. He became a player among players and didn't have the stats, but I think he was a little more effective. And then, funny enough, they did the same thing with Dame. And they built everything around him. And lo and behold, 2024, 2023, Dame went to Milwaukee. And now they don't have an all-star, and they don't have a team that's really performing at its best. And they don't have a title. And so the thing I think about with that is 2 all-stars, they built the team around them, and they fed the all-star so much that they started to rely on that. And I will say that Portland relied less on Dame, and Dame really tried to make it a team sport. At least that's what it looked like. But still, when the going got rough, it was Lillard time, right? And that's a problem. And so I'm actually I've got a problem. I just found out that my computer is low on my battery. So
Sounds like you need a plug.
Uh-oh, I need a plug.
Yes.
I don't have one nearby.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a problem.
Well,
I
that
might
is. Well,
just go run and grab one real quick.
go for it. I'll keep
But
talking while you grab.
yeah, you hold down the fort. I'll be right back.
You got it. Well, yeah, folks. And I think there's a great example there. I've had several conversations just recently with several leaders at different events that I've been talking with. And that question has come up. What do you do? You've got a star, quote, performer on the performance side of things, but yet they're just not a team player. They don't get along with others in the organization. And the question is, how do I handle that? What do I do with it? And I've heard time and time again, folks that, well, I don't want to, don't want to upset the apple cart. I mean, they're bringing in the bacon, right? They're bringing in great amount of money, and unfortunately, far too often leaders find out far too late that they're also running off your other best people. And so your best people are going to start to leave. And over time, what's going to happen is the people that are producing all together, if you put them all together, more than that person, are all going to leave. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up with less. So the short-term gain of keeping the star performer who doesn't really fit your culture and who is all about themselves is not worth the long-term loss of what's going to happen to your company and the destruction that they're going to bring. It's interesting. I was thinking, Terry, as you said that, go down the coast a little bit to LA, and I'm thinking of the Kobe Shaq alliance. And that team looked unbeatable when they had Kobe and Shaq together. But once Kobe ran Shaq off, and it couldn't work with the two of them, and Kobe had to have just Kobe. And what did you have? Kobe scoring 50 points and the Lakers being terrible for a while.
Yep.
And it's another great example. It's like, hey, it's got to be all about me, or I can't have other people here with me, and no one else can take up my limelight. And Kobe had to learn a hard lesson there. That guess what? You know what? It's better to be a team player and be part of a team, and experience the greatness that happens being a part of a team, than it is to be selfish and run off your other best players.
Yeah, and I think Golden State. Now that we're talking about basketball, Golden State was actually a very good example of when you have a lot of high performers and a lot of all-stars sharing the ball and working together towards a common goal.
Yep.
And so when we start really looking at, okay, how does business reflect the same thing? Well, business is a team sport, and you got to share the ball, and you got to share communication, really. And I think about that with a lot of businesses when they're not working together, and you have somebody who is enjoying all-star status, and then there's either ego involved, or there's you could have a high performer that is actually fairly down to earth and fairly clear on what they're supposed to be doing, but everybody relies on them so much that they can't take the pressure and they leave.
Yep.
And so there's all kinds of different situations that it can come, but if you do have that high performer that is creating a toxicity, and I don't know if I like that word necessarily. I think it's overused because we that person's toxic. Well, the environment becomes toxic because the behavior is going on, and the lack of emotional communication that's going on. There's a lack of vulnerability, and then everybody's walking on eggshells, which is what we're calling toxic. But really, it's a behavioral and emotional issue within the business, and it's solvable if everybody is willing to enter that conflict and talk about it, and willing to step into change. Unfortunately, if people aren't willing to step into change, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is loving them up or loving them out.
Yep. And I think the loving them up part is a key piece that you're saying too, because it doesn't always have to reach the point where they have to go out. If a leader, and again, there's a leadership problem if that persists for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. Leaders have to have the courage to step in. And so you've got to step in early when you see them misbehaving, when you see them not matching who you are as a company. That's when the leader must step in. It doesn't matter how high performing they are. You've got to step in there and you've got to say, no, this is who we are. And you need to match who we are. You need to live this out. You need to be whatever it is, whatever your defined core values and identity is as a company, and you need to treat people a certain way. That's just life. It's
So
part
let
of
me ask
living
you,
in
Doug.
this company.
Let me
And you
ask
got
you,
to do
Doug.
that early. And you got to set that and establish that early. And then you can avoid the, hey, I got to ship out the high performer potentially. You maybe not.
Absolutely. I got a question for you, and it's because you triggered something in me. But what do you think of picking your battles? When people say, "I want to pick my battles," what comes to mind for you? I have an answer, so I might be setting you up, but I do want to hear your take on that.
It's interesting. I think there's a place for that, but as a leader, there's a place in life for and a context where choosing your battles, right? So I think of my kids, right? If I nail them on every last thing, they're going to get discouraged. So I see where there's the place for that of choosing your battles, right? On the flip side, there are certain battles that you cannot ever lose. You cannot pick. There's no picking involved. When it comes down to your core values, when it comes down to what's absolutely essential, there's no choosing your battles. Those lines are drawn. Those are red lines. You cross the line, they have to be stepped into. And you have to say, look, this is who we are, this is where we live. If you can't live within these lines, then you can't live here. That's my take.
I like your distinction, and I totally agree that there's nitpicking rigidity that I think that you were kind of referring to with kids and that type of thing. And then we're running an organization, and this is what we've agreed upon. Mm-hmm. And this is how we're doing it. And so every battle that is avoided battle, every time we go, well, I'm going to pick my battles, I'm going to leave this one. Every avoidance is a compromise to your values, to your vision, to your mission. And as we compromise, we actually leave behind what we've actually raised our hands saying, this is what we want.
Yep.
And so, and I watch it a lot with people avoiding conflict. They're picking their battles, and really what they're doing is they're avoiding conflict because they're uncomfortable with conflict. But overwhelmingly, the more we do that, the more it's kind of like ignoring a significant health issue like cancer. Like, well, I'm going to pick my battles. That's a battle you want to actually engage in.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Fight that one at stage 1, not stage 4.
Right. Exactly.
Just saying.
Yeah. And so I think that it's so
we've got a little fire in the corner of the room. I think I'm going to wait until it takes over the room before I get the fire extinguisher out. No.
I'll leave that one over there. I'll go get this one over here.
Yeah.
This one's only a spark. That one's a flame. That scares me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not going to work.
No.
And it's funny because I have another experience with this particular situation. I was working with some people that had a hen hunting firm for medical facilities, and their top performer was really kind of he was one of these guys that didn't really have a system, so to speak, but he was really good with people and had that kind of the politician kind of thing going on, right?
Yeah, charisma,
yeah. And he was really good at talking to people, and so he could make his numbers every month. But he'd be out at lunch for a couple of hours. He'd leave during the day. He just basically didn't really work within their system, but he could always hit his numbers and then some. And so the guy that owned the company was like, I really don't want to let him go because he's hitting his numbers and the other people just aren't. And so I need this guy. And I asked him, well, do you have a system or do you have the ability to let people work from home? This is 2014, way before 2020 when people worked at home and stuff. But do you have a system where they can work from home, or have you discussed what that would look like? And he's like, no, everybody in the office, everybody's got to be in the office. And we want a camaraderie. We want everybody bang the phones so that they're, a call center kind of thing. But this guy isn't playing that way. And I was like, well, what can we do? And he had me go in and coach him around how to actually be a team player. And the guy wasn't into it. In fact, the guy actually started asking me if I could borrow money from me. I was like, dude, you are not this game material, right? I'm not loaning you money. And it was like, second conversation I have with him. Hey, can I borrow $20? No. This is what you have in your business.
Yeah.
But the guy is so used to being able to get what he's looking for.
Oh yeah.
That, and he'd go for the low hanging fruit to make his numbers, but he wasn't actually creating a good business strategy. And once we actually started looking after they did let the guy go, started looking at his accounts, most of the people were not very pleased with his service either.
Mm. Yep.
And so high performer, how are you measuring it?
Yeah. Good point. Well said. Yeah.
And
What's he
then
doing to get those? Yeah.
The second piece with that is, are you actually looking for high performer making your numbers or high performer making your culture?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So it's interesting because people are so focused on data, and data is, in fact, I focus on data a lot. I think data is very, very important.
Yep.
But data is one part of the picture. Culture is a huge part of the picture because the data doesn't make sense without culture.
Yep.
And we can have all of the data we want, but if people can't have the culture to actually use the data to move forward in the mission towards the vision, then we don't have any use for that data the way it is.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, I understand how all of this stuff is counted. I understand all of what's going on here, but I can't get my people to perform.
Right. Yeah. We live in an American mentality that kind of fits the, what have you done for me lately? And we're very short-term focused. And so we take the short-term gain of this high performer over the long-term damage that person is doing to our company.
Well said. Well said.
And what we fail to see is the long-term damage is actually going to cost us more financially than the short-term financial gain is going to actually do for us. And so over the short term, sure, they're going to bring in a lot of money. And maybe we're going to have a few other performers who are doing middling. And with all of them together, we're doing really well. But guess what? All of a sudden, when we lose the 4 middling performers because they can't work with the 1 star performer, and their 4 middling performers all together were like double or triple what the star performer brought in, we're in a world of hurt.
Yeah. And in fact, the interesting thing to push my example a little further is when they did finally let go of this guy, the owner of the business was very scared that they were going to have a lot of problems. But what happened is everybody else felt free to start actually performing at a level that was higher. And I think that this is a story that is always showing up when you remove a high performer that has the numbers performance but doesn't have the culture. You remove that guy and you start seeing everybody else step into their greatness, because and this is one of the things that I explained to the CEO or owner, whatever you want to call him. When these people have room to step up and they know that you're not going to tolerate poor behavior, and you're going to support people learning and growing, you're going to start to see everybody step into what you were looking for. The problem is that you're actually leading scared.
Yep.
You're frustrated with people not following through, but they're actually just following the leader that you're letting get away with everything.
Yep. Yep.
And
Well, and you're causing underperformance among everyone else
yes,
because you're setting up special rules for your
yes,
star performer.
yes,
I mean, again, let's look at the sports world. I mean, I grew up in New York where, the Yankees brought in guys like Alex Rodriguez, and all of a sudden he got all sorts of special perks and special things. And all the other guys are going, I don't want to work harder because he's got all this extra special stuff. Or you just look at what happened with the Denver Broncos just recently when Russell Wilson shows up and he wants an office and he wants a this and he wants a that. And whatever you think of Russell, guess what? That didn't go well for the team dynamic, did it? It
no.
was utterly destructive. And so all the other guys are disgruntled. How well did that go in terms of guys playing well together? It didn't.
Well,
It was
yeah,
a
and it
terrible
wasn't good for
dynamic.
him either. And
No.
so if you spoil your top performers, they're going to react the same way as a spoiled child.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're setting yourself up to have poor performance. You're not helping the rest of the people because they're going to sit there and go, they're throwing their hands up going, well, he's getting all the special treatment. Why am I going to work harder? Why am I
Right.
going to do more? Your employee engagement, your employee morale is just sinking like crazy in a heartbeat amongst everyone else. And that person's morale isn't going up. They don't care because they just think, well, I'm just special, so who cares?
Right. And
There's
I'm going to
nothing
throw in
special
some
for
feel.
them.
I'm going to throw in some emotions to that. And
Yeah.
when we see that somebody in the Russell Wilson example, I'm not as familiar as it with you, but just the way you designed it or explained it, Russell's getting what he wants. Everybody else is feeling a little betrayed.
Yep.
They're feeling invalidated. They're feeling inferior compared.
Yep.
And then they fight because they want to be equal, not inferior.
Yep.
They're feeling disappointed and powerless because they can't get the management to really pay attention.
Yeah.
And how often is that exact situation happening? Because the next thing that they start feeling is they feel disconnected.
Yep.
They feel worthless or worth less than. And so they step back and they go, fine, let's see what you can do then.
Yep.
If he's got the office, he must know how to run the ball too.
Right. Yep.
And he must be able to throw and catch.
Yeah.
Throw it and go catch it. He's got the office. We don't. And so it starts.
You want me to go over the middle and get killed for your sake? No, I'm not doing that.
Absolutely. and it's all out of people starting to feel invalidated and then untrusting of the ownership or the management structure because there's playing favorites and silos are created out of that.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then the team that's supposed to be a team, all of a sudden, there's elite and not so elite. A team, B team.
Yep.
But the problem is there's only one person on the A team.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's no team, really.
Absolutely.
Yep. And we fail and we lose. And it's miserable.
Yeah. So how do they fix it?
Great question. Well, as we said at the beginning, I think your start point is one, you got to nip it in the bud, right? You can't play the game. The second you see the ego, the second you see the misbehaving, the second you see that stuff, as a leader, you have to have the courage to step in. You have to do conflict. There is no other option as a leader. You need courage. If you want to be a great organization, if you want to be a great leader, you have to step in, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Number two. Go for it.
Number two. Well, I will say, even before you're stepping in, you have to set up the culture in that way that, okay, these are the rules we're playing with. We talked about basketball a lot, and then we even talked about football a little bit. I'm not going to talk about baseball because it's just not me. But I think that the reason those games are so fun to watch is because most everybody watching knows the rules.
Yep.
And everybody has the same set of rules, and the players have the same set of rules. The coaches have the same set of rules. The referees are there enforcing the rules.
Yep.
And so we have a structure to play.
Yep.
And as long as everybody's playing in it, the fouls are the fouls, the out of bounds are the out of bounds. We don't go ahead and go, oh, it's out of bounds, let's move the lines in now because it was out of bounds.
Right. Yep.
Right. Or they were out of bounds too many times, so we'll move it out for them so that they have an easier time. We don't do that. The lines are the lines, and out of bounds is out of bounds. Inbounds is inbounds.
Absolutely.
When you play against the rule, they blow the whistle and say, whoa, sometimes there's a penalty. Replay the ball, whatever. Sometimes penalty shots, however we're doing it. But there's rules that everybody agreed on when they started.
Yep.
And when everybody agrees on them, then you're number one, getting into the conflict, being the referee, saying, hey, you're out of bounds. Hey, you created a foul. Hey, you are not playing with the rules we agreed upon. And then coaching the rule.
Yep.
And so I think that that's so important because people don't do that. They start a business, and I've worked with a lot of startups. And they start a business, they get really excited, and they get moving. And I mean, Generator is my brand. And what we're talking about is generating success quickly on the bullet train of action kind of idea. So I'm always talking about going really fast with building your business.
Yep.
But the thing is before you can go fast on a bullet train, you have to have a track laid. Yep. And the track is the rules. The track is the understanding of how we're doing what we're doing. Yep. And so really being able to understand that this is inbounds, this is out of bounds, this is on track, this is off track.
Yep. Well said.
Now we are able to be moving forward.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah. Those parameters got to be in place. And with that, you've also got to continually communicate those. They've got to be said again and again and again. And that's another problem leaders have, right? They start to go, oh, I've said this too many times. No, you haven't. That reminder's got to constantly be there and constantly be communicated.
And that's really interesting what you're saying, because I think that there's two places that the leader goes with that. Either they go, I've said this over and over and over. When are they going to get it? Yep. Or they go, oh my God, I've said it too much. I don't want to upset them. Right. And either way, they're actually removing their responsibility for being that reminding officer. It's like, no. Your job in leadership is to continue to remind. I don't see refs in games go, you know what? I've blown this whistle every time they go out of bounds, and they're just not listening, so we're not gonna call it out of bounds anymore.
I can't believe they didn't understand that was out of bounds.
or oh, foul. No, we're not gonna call fouls anymore because they just keep doing it.
Yeah. They should have gotten it by now.
I also haven't seen a ref put somebody in a headlock because somebody fouled somebody.
Right.
Right. And so either way, it's like we don't do that.
No.
The refs of the game, which I honestly believe that the leadership are also referees in a way, saying this is inbounds, this is out of bounds. Referees and coaches at the same time. Reffing, they have their they have the referee uniform, they blow the whistle, say that's out of bounds. Then they move right into coach and go, okay, this is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And so those C-suite executives, the owners of the company, the leaders of the company, whatever position they have in a leadership role, they're first refs and then coaches.
Yeah.
And you're in a fight? No. Let's separate. Now let's coach the conversation.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought me back, because in my number one, I had unfortunately assumed, hey, we set the tracks. So I'm glad you brought that back on me, because I should not assume. Bad move. So yes, set the tracks in place. Then we gotta make sure we're keeping them on the tracks and we're communicating it. And along with that, we're hiring to those standards. We got to look for people and hire to it. Again, here you are. And how many teams, they don't consider their culture when they go out and get the star player, right? Be that in sports or be that in business, right? Oh, this guy would be really great because he's got all the skills and all the talent. Well, that's great. But guess what? If he comes in and destroys the nature of your company, he's not all that great. He's not worth it, or she's not worth it. If they come in and they're a solo act and they destroy your team nature of your entire company, they're not worth it. It doesn't matter how good they are at the skills that they bring to the company. And so being able to hire to and onboard to and get that person up and running as a team player, you've got to be able to do that. So that's essential as a leader. will I protect, will I guard the culture both internally by keeping my people on track, but externally by not hiring in people who don't fit? Am I the guard of the culture? Am I the protector of the culture of the what is right and what is wrong, what stays, what goes, what do we stay on these tracks going straight
Right.
forward?
Yeah, the term gatekeeper comes to mind for me, and we all who have done anything in sales and have tried to get in meetings and companies
Yep.
and things
Yep.
are really frustrated with gatekeepers. But those gatekeepers are not just gatekeeping because they want to keep you out. They don't even know who you are. What they're really doing, whether they're doing it the right way or maybe they need a little coaching around gatekeeping too, they are attempting to protect the culture that they're living in
Yep.
their business. And so one of the things I think about that is we have to really respect the fact that this person is trying their best to keep whatever's going on in that business protected, cared for in the way that they know best. Now, sometimes the culture is really bad and they're protecting being seen,
Right.
but at least they're protecting themselves. And as a psychologist, I'll go a little bit further with that. As a psychologist, when I was in my early days of learning psychodynamic psychology, I had a professor named Mark Lubin, amazing guy, and he says, I want everybody in this room to realize that when people talk about defense mechanisms, and we've all heard the term, oh, they're being defensive. Oh, they're using defense mechanisms. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Defense mechanisms is the wrong term, he said. What they're really doing is they're engaging in self-protection, and it is one of the most beautiful, wonderful things, because if they weren't doing that, they would be engaging in self-harm. And so we have to honor the fact that they're protecting themselves. They're just either protecting themselves in a way that's actually hurting themselves, and they need to actually address that,
Yeah.
or they don't realize that the protection that they're doing is harming other people in some way, and we need to help them see that.
Yeah.
And so our job is to really help them to honor the fact that they're protecting themselves, and then help them really explore why they're protecting the way they are. And I've taken that, and I heard that in 2002 is when I heard that.
Yeah.
And it has never left me that everybody is doing whatever they're doing to protect themselves, and they're doing the best they can at protecting themselves with the information they have, and they don't know any better because they're working off the information that is in front of them right then. When they get new information, they can do better.
Yep.
And it was an amazing lesson that Mark gave me, and hats off, Mark.
I love it.
But it's colored everything I've ever done with anybody from that point of view of, okay, this person deserves honor for the fact they're protecting themselves. It's just not having the effect that they're looking for. So how can I help them protect themselves in a way that's either safer for them, safer for everyone around, or another way to put it is to be more vulnerable and protect themselves in a more vulnerable, open manner.
Yep.
Which really goes back to communicating.
Yeah. And communicating well and building trust and all of those good things that we love to talk about.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
So when it comes down to it,
hopefully as the leader does that job of keeping people focused on staying on the right tracks, the performer responds, gets on board, and we're all doing well. But when they don't, then you got to make that hard decision. And you got to say, hey, I love the way Bobby Herrera puts it. Sometimes you got to expose them to the market, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a company out there that would love to have you. We're just not them.
Yeah. And Al Mulally says, this might not be the best fit for them.
Yep.
And so we want to lovingly let them find the next thing that's going to actually fit them better.
Yeah. You don't have to do this. Can't work here, but you don't have to do this. But if you're going to not do it, you can't work here.
Yeah. I actually was talking to a client the other day about this very topic. And he was like, I don't want to impose my will or be, trying to coerce somebody into a behavior. And I said, the way that I think about that, it's very clear that we don't want to coerce anybody. And so the line that I gave him is, look, I can't tell you how to live your life or how to show up at business.
Yep.
But I can tell you what we'll accept here.
Yes.
And so the idea is, I'm not going to tell you how you need to behave, but I tell you what this business is going to accept in the walls of the business. And if you're not behaving that way, there probably isn't a place for you.
Yep. Yeah. This is who we are. If you fit that, you can be here. If you don't, well, you're going to have to go find somewhere else.
And we will love you either way.
Yep.
We don't want to coerce you into being the way we want you to be. We want you to have fun and be excited and be exuberant and enthusiastic about being here. And so if this is not the way you want to do things, then this is probably a bad fit.
Yep. Well, and I think leaders hear this. You're giving someone a choice.
Absolutely.
You're not coercing. You're not even accusing them of being something bad. You're saying, hey, this is who we are and intend to be. This is what we love being. And if this isn't what you love being, then you should go find what you love being and go be it.
Yes.
You should go find the people who love doing what you do and acting the way you act and being the way you are and go do it with them. But that's not in here.
Yeah.
You're giving them a choice. And in actuality, if there's a culture that fits them better, you're actually loving them and helping them get there.
Absolutely. And the reality is there's I mentioned some behaviors that really weren't working for this guy. Some places totally okay. Some places, and I'm not going to say, being egotistical or what is necessarily okay. But what I am saying is somebody who knows how to go get business and knows how to drum up business and knows what level of engagement that they need to have. At some places it's totally okay. You're a solo act and you're a solo sales guy and doing that type of thing. Used car salesman or something like that. And I'm not trying to muddy that either. But the fact of the matter is some of those jobs or specific ways of being, it's totally acceptable to be that. Yep. But not in this particular culture.
Right.
And so we want to really look at, does my behavior fit the culture?
Yep. Well said.
And what behaviors are we looking for in this culture? And am I going to surrender to that culture and be a part of it? Or am I not going to surrender to it? And then I'm going to go find another culture that I can surrender to.
Yeah. So last words for a leader who's sitting in that situation. What would you, what would be your encouragement? They're sitting there. They've got a high performer. They haven't taken the steps they needed to take, but they know they got to step into this and they got to go confront that person.
I think that for me, I would go with a couple of questions. And the first question is what's going to happen if you keep them? Mm-hmm. And the second question, or what's going to happen if you let them go?
Yep.
And then what's going to happen if you keep them? And really explore both.
Yep.
Data-wise.
Yep.
How is their being there affecting everyone else?
Yeah.
Although they may be data-wise, they may be having the numbers. How is morale? How is everything else? What is it like when they're not there?
Yeah.
And have a contrasting kind of understanding of what it's like when they're there, what it's like when they're not there, and really step back into the fact that your culture is your legacy.
Yeah. That's good. That's good stuff. Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
So leaders, we know it's challenging. We know it takes courage. We're not sitting here saying, hey, this is easy. But guess what? No one ever said being a leader is. And so it's part of life as a leader. It's laying down your life. It's service. It's a challenge. Leadership isn't for the faint of heart. It's for those who are willing to step up and take bullets. So it takes courage, but stepping in with that courage is actually what helps make a great organization and helps your company do better, or helps your nonprofit do better, or whatever it is. And so we want to encourage you today. Do what's needed for the welfare of your company, for your people, even for that person. If that person doesn't fit, help them get where they fit. It's really
Absolutely.
best. It's really loving for them. So, well, thanks for being with us. We've got on the way out, we've got a quick little intro for upcoming training we've got. We just had one last week, and we got another one coming this week. So I'm just going to put that up there for that video. It'll be about a minute long. So check it out real quick, and then we will see you next week, same time, same place. So thanks for joining us.
See you, everybody.